What's up, gang? Welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we have a very long overdue episode of Table Talk Back, where we take a look at what you, the community, had to say on the previous Table Talk video. Which, if you missed it, I'll put a link to it in the description below, where we had a special guest, Alex Radcliffe for Board Game Co. to talk about this week's topic, the ideal collection size. Now, as you can see, Alex couldn't make...
I'm here. Start without me.
Alex, you probably want to sit up for the
that's
cameras.
a good idea. Oh,
You look,
yeah.
you look a bit different.
Well, I didn't want
A little
this
bit,
to follow
a little bit more floppy than I'm
Everyone was counting
used
on it.
to seeing you. And you changed your hair too.
Yes. So when I changed my hair, you changed your hair. Well, maybe I wanted to change my hair, Chris George. Is that a crime, huh?
No.
Getting all that at me about my hair. I just wanted a different style.
I think it looks good. You can change it.
Why'd you say it like that, huh? I've got 5 reasons why I don't like your
No,
tone.
okay.
Well, actually, it's really 7 reasons because if I couldn't just live with 5 reasons. 5 reasons would be too many. So the first reason. What are you doing? What are you doing? No, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Have a good one. Battlestar Galactica is my favorite game. Ow.
So Alex couldn't make it this episode, but luckily I have all of your comments from the. No sign of them. And so, as always, I will do my best to moderate and distill the comments, eliminating repeats and such. And that way, to coin a common phrase of mine, and certainly not Rodney Smith's, we can all participate in the conversation. So, what is the perfect collection size? Or is there even such a thing? As Steve so aptly put it, my ideal collection size is just one more. Which I think is funny, and I'm sure many of us could agree with this sentiment. There were a few others in the comments who said a similar thing, and while it's said partly in jest, this is a real consideration. I touched upon it briefly in last episode, but there's this mentality when you get into the hobby that you want to acquire. Not play the game acquire and use its name as a verb. Don't trust Chris, he's Cataning you. But keep adding to your collection. And I think a lot of the reason behind that is there are a lot of great games out there, and there are even more really good games. And I have quite a few on my shelf that are really good. They're fun. But I'd added them to my collection because I'd heard of them somewhere, or I'd played it at a friend's house and enjoyed that game enough that I decided I should have my own copy and finally cut that friend out of my life completely. And we get into this habit of wanting more and more and more. And not necessarily because we have the desire to play every single one of those games at the same extent as some of our other favorites. And part of this, I'm sure, can stem from just existing on YouTube. As the Messy Desk says, I feel like so many board game channels and communities focus so heavily on acquisition and covering the next newest thing, it becomes really easy to get lost in FOMO and what we in the music hobby call GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome. We have a lot of influencers in the sphere that really only cover new releases and new gear to get hyped for, and honestly, it gets tiring. And it's true. That's the nature of kind of being in this echo chamber of YouTube, in a sense, where it makes sense to talk about those new releases because those are the things that people are most actively searching for. But I know that I personally experienced this GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome, before I even started creating a single video on YouTube. Long before even discovering it as an outlet for board game conversation and media that I enjoy it as today. Even before I learned about the internet. And for me, it had a lot to do with, oh hey, I really like this thing. Of course, I want more of it. And so this conversation isn't necessarily to say, hey, sell your entire collection. You don't get to have toys. But there comes a point when you realize, and maybe that point is now watching this video, that you have hit your limit or even surpassed your limit. I mean, I'm gonna assume this video is the full catalyst for that and just cover my ears and shout loudly at anyone who says it isn't, when you try to tell me that it wasn't me who provided you with this revelation. And so what is that point? What is that limit? For a lot of people, they really resonated with how many games do you realistically get to your table per year? And that's your number. That's the collection size, which we talked about a lot in the previous video. But what was surprising to me is that a lot of people also latched onto the idea of space as the determining factor. As Ruben says, I feel the perfect game collection size just comes down to the room or space that you have. We're sitting around 200 plus games, not including crowdfunded games on the way, and play around 5 games a week. We have games for specific people in our collection too, and we decided that we would start culling games when we run out of space. My philosophy is you haven't hit your perfect game collection size as long as you have money and room. And I really resonate with this thought as well, personally. Although having gotten rid of those games in that November Purge video, I can tell you that it does feel great. It really does. It feels like a weight has almost been lifted off of me. But along the lines of what Ruben's saying, there is something to be said for having the perfect game for anyone who comes over. As CB says, sadly, I purchase board games based on covering a vast type of situation. Even if I play a game once a year, I know my sister in Georgia or my sister in Texas will love it, so I keep it. I keep Cthulhu Wars because sometimes you need a Lovecraftian area control, but you have to have Blood Rage because sometimes you need a Norse-themed area control game. And it is highly regarded on the top 100 of BGG, etc. All these different criteria. Because of this, I tend to have more games than I play, but I feel comfortable knowing that those 2 times that I see my sisters in a year, it will be a blast. That one time that someone says, hey, I love Street Fighter, and I bust out level 99 Street Fighter, the Street Fighter's miniatures game, and blow them away. And I don't know why it started with sadly. Sadly, I buy games for various situations. To me, that's perfectly legitimate. If your goal, or at least a lot of our goals, or the goals that we're talking about specifically here, if it's to play games, this is still achieving that goal. If, to use the sister example, you're saving that game for the right person, and when you get together, you actually play it and you have a good time. Even if those get-togethers are few and far between, you're still meeting that goal. Or at least I think so. I think where it becomes a problem, or perhaps not a problem, but unnecessary, is when even when you do get together with that specific person that you're saving that game to play with, and you don't play the game, and that happens multiple times, then it might be time to start thinking of getting rid of that particular title. I mean, or not. Coincidentally, this was the part where I was going to make a joke about me being a robot and taking over the world, and that's of course when my microphone woes continued. Or at least that's what I found out when I was editing, so... So it's a different day, same discussion, but I already recycled my script and I'm not going to waste the paper to print out another one, so I'm just going to use my computer instead to get the comments, the other comments that I wanted to talk about and bring forward as part of the discussion as well. So where were we? We were talking about holding on to those games that you're going to find that time to play. You swear you will. But I just got rid of Dominion for a similar reason. I usually play it with 2 people. My friend Ryan, who owns a copy and a bunch of expansions, and my friend Sarah, who lives in England, who I see maybe once a year. And the last couple times that we hung out, we didn't play Dominion. We played something else, we just chatted, we did whatever people do. I swear I'm not a robot. So that made me realize, okay, yeah, this game, it's time for it to go. Which does bring us to JJ the Great, who asks, now let's say hypothetically that you've come to the conclusion that you need to start culling your collection. How do you decide which games go first, and what would the best way of ridding those games be? And this is a great question, or a great 2 questions, I guess. And first off, I have turned such a corner. I really think culling your games is a great thing. Because I can tell you, I was really skeptical of getting rid of all of my precious little treasures. And I talked a bit about this in the Board Game Purge video in November. I'm sure there will be more soon. But there's this real Marie Kondo effect, and you feel lighter. Or at least I did. And I know we're talking about how to decide which ones go first, and I'll get into that in a second. But having made that decision to get rid of some games and put those games out on the markets, and some of them have sold, some have not, I immediately wanted to look at getting rid of a few more, streamlining that collection even further, to get it to that point where when I look at my shelf, I only see games that I am really, really excited to play. And this is a sort of wild mindset that I didn't think would happen with just one purge, but I guess it's true what they say, the purge changes people for the better. Long live the purge! But how do you decide on which games should go? Well, for me, step 1 is the dust test. Is there dust on the box because you haven't opened it in years? Is the dust sunk so far into the box that it's actually kind of damaged that pristine quality that your real magnificent treasures have? So long, girl, goodbye. You're out the door. Step 2, Do you remember the rules? Now, this one is a little less significant, but if you don't know how to play, you're going to want to pull it out less. Or you're going to pull it out and subject everybody at the table to your relearn of the rules, which will significantly impact your game time in general, because nobody's going to want to play with you if you keep doing that to them, Carl. And step number 3, at least this helped for me, was think about pulling out that game. Think about the perfect instance in which you are saving that particular game for, that you're on the fence in terms of, do I get rid of it or do I keep it? Think about the perfect instance. You're waiting it for these particular people, for this particular time of year, for any other criteria. Now think about that situation occurring, and do you play that game or do you want to play something else instead? Is there a part of you that won't be satisfied? Will you suggest something else? Will you feel embarrassed about suggesting this game to begin with? Although the embarrassment, I guess, isn't a good criteria, because we can be embarrassed about liking a certain game that we know is incredible, but your other game group, likes to tease you about or whatever. So maybe that's not a good criteria. But if you play it, does it let you down? And do you wish you were with someone else, playing something else? And I think when it comes down to it, you should just be honest with yourself whether you actually like the game or whether you think you should like the game. Because so many lists have told you that you should. Once I got over that hurdle, it became a lot easier for me. And I could just say, yeah, I don't really like Seven Wonders anymore. Well, okay, that's not true. Like, I'll still play it. My parents own it. I'd love to play it with them. And I'll still play it on Board Game Arena. But I don't personally love it and will suggest it and pull it out. And honestly, I don't know if I ever did. And it's okay to not like these things that all the essential collections lists tell you should like. Anyway, that was my thought process for initially gathering together the stuff that I wanted to see out the door, and will probably continue to use that methodology for culling my own collection and streamlining it so it is the perfect collection for me. Make sure to share your own method of thinking, in this one in particular, in the comments below, because I think it's interesting, and I probably missed some really good tips in deciding what games should go out the door. But it also feels really freeing, and maybe down the line I will be getting rid of some really good games, but it's because I am making room for really great games. Or even just replacing the time I would spend on them trying to play through my collection, which isn't an arbitrary goal, but it is in a way, and make sure that I spend that time playing things I would enjoy doing more. And anyway, for how I get rid of them, I generally use Kijiji. That's like Craigslist. I'm not sure if Kijiji has made its way into the States yet. It's a great site, but that's what I use up here in Canada. And then there's also this great Facebook group. I'm in Toronto, so I'm part of the Toronto Board Game Swap Facebook group as well. And I've gotten a bunch of board games on there, and I've sold a few through there as well. So look up on Facebook, Board Game Swap Your City, because it's a good resource. And if there isn't one, then start one. It might just be you and Joe down the street, but hey, at least you can have a better way of communicating now. And I think it's also neat that for a lot of games, the benefit of the hobby is that you can get it, play it once, and then sell it, hopefully recouping most of the cost, as if you'd gone out to a board game cafe for the day instead, but you had that at your house where you didn't have to pay for the overpriced snacks and drinks that keep them in business. And I do know that there are a lot of games that I have purchased with that intention. Play it once, then sell it. It's just I don't often get to that selling point. So while it's a great part of the hobby that you can cycle these games, make sure if you are purchasing games with that intention that you actually follow through on that intention and get to the other side of these things. If that continuous cycle of your collection is the goal. But that being said, our collections also might be in a different state than they once were just due to the pandemic, because of all the different versions of Pandemic that you own. And also because it has definitely affected the amount of games that we can play in a week. As Walter says, my collection is around 200. I'm very good about getting rid of games I don't like, but the pandemic didn't allow me to play a lot of new games with friends, and so it started to clutter. I'm sitting at 221 games with a bunch of pre-ordered stuff on the way and a bunch unplayed. But since the end of lockdown, I've been able to get a good 4 to 5 new games played a week with different gaming groups, so I'm hopeful that it will all work out. Tabletop Simulator is also great for culling my wish list, both for games that I want to try and for games that I think are just significantly more accessible in a digital format. any deck builder, most dungeon crawlers, anything with a lengthy cleanup. I don't like to teach all new games to every group all the time, because I think it's too much for people, so I spread it out with different groups and mix in stuff that they know with things that they don't know, and it's worked out so far. And this is also a really great note about Tabletop Simulator, Tabletopia, or Board Game Arena, which is ever expanding. You can try them before you buy them, and some will just be better digitally. I'm a little annoyed that the Gloomhaven digital game is out there because I know I want to buy it and play it, and I'd play it a lot more than I'm playing my copy of Gloomhaven right now, but I own Gloomhaven, so it feels like I'm cheating if I do that, or I'm not getting the money's worth out of the gift because I was given that as a gift and we're playing it together. But with these sort of digital implementations, you can get that feeling of the one and done cycling without having to actually put in the legwork of putting your stuff up online, selling it, and meeting up with people. I don't want to see people, are you kidding me? I have pandemic PTSD. And so it's definitely true that over the last few years, I've played a little bit less, or less than I'd like to, because I get more and more involved in the hobby every year. But I'm also sure that the pandemic has encouraged the amount of spending on Kickstarters and other avenues in order to get that sweet dopamine hit. I find in the absence of playing games, I get that feeling from purchasing them, imagining what it will be, from thinking about the fun that I'll have with them. But that's also how I found that doing my weekly Monday crowdfunding countdown videos, looking at, reading through the rule books, and talking about a whole bunch of new games every week has actually lessened my spending, because I'm talking about them and I'm imagining playing with them. I don't necessarily have to get them. I can wait and play them later. I can have fun talking about what they'd be like. I can have fun here on YouTube interacting with people and watching videos about the different various games. And that's almost like a supplementation for the times where I haven't been able to get together as frequently with friends or family as I would like, due to the outside circumstances of the global pandemic. And this was also brought up as a point in our last Table Talk Back video about solo gaming, in terms of finding those ways to have community and still game by yourself, which I loved, and I think it is almost just as relevant here. Or you can go the other route with Kickstarters. As Steven says, my ideal collection size just got 52 games larger because I've backed that many games in the last 3 months. I have a problem. Or maybe my ideal collection size is now just over 100 as the new games start to ship. I mean, it's never really a problem as long as you're enjoying it and you can afford it. Although 52 games in 3 months, that is quite a few, and I'm excited for all the boxes and boxes to be arriving at your door, which I hope arrive all at once. You have your own version of the Dice Tower Mega unboxing. I don't know if any of you saw that video. It was outrageous. They got basically gifted an estate sale. They had to pay shipping, but they got a whole bunch of games from this one person who had died for a low, low price, and we're going to send them on and sell them. And he just really liked the channel, and so they sent them all their way. But these boxes, it was like a whole driveway filled with boxes. Go check it out. It was wild just to see the amount. But Kickstarter can have that effect, where it's really easy to pull the trigger, and then you're needing to buy a new shelf or two down the line. But I mean, hey, as long as you're enjoying the process and are getting the maximum amount of excitement for when these games come, you know, who cares? But when that stops being fun, well, then it's time to stop. I mean, really, these videos or conversations about spending habits, excess of a thing, can often take on the tone of, you shouldn't do this because I'm not doing it, so you can't. But if it's not harming you or impacting you negatively, who cares? My spending habits, I'm sure, are significantly different from a lot of people's spending habits because I am poor. So this is just a friendly reminder to make sure that they continue to bring you joy, and the same level of joy, or you know, in that range. And now that you've had your friendly reminder, here's your mean reminder that you're not going to play them, you dumb idiots, and your collection size should be 0. Spend more time coding or tilling a field. I mean, I guess you could do both of those in various games. Anyway, we're a bit off track. I guess we'll leave this segment with one final quote on collection size. And this one is from Kath, who says, I have 3 collections. My game collection, my collection of games that are just so beautiful I'm happy looking at them, and my educational collection. So for me, I guess the question is, what's the ideal number of collections to have? A great question. Maybe that'll have to be the follow-up on this follow-up. The ideal number of collections. But it's true. We all have those different categories of things, right? And it's just managing them and breaking down the space and time that we have on this world of ours. Hopefully most of it being spent on our pop toy collection. I don't collect pop toys, but I have a good friend who does. He's got hundreds of them. And I look at them and I think, what are you doing? What are these for? But you know what they're for? They're there to bring us joy. That's what collections are for. That's what this hobby is for. And you know what? That's what I'm for. I'm here to bring you joy too. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. Thank you so much to everyone who commented. Sorry that this one was a little bit late and then a little bit even more late than when I expected to put it out because, you know, technical issues happen sometimes, but we just move on. But thank you to everyone who does comment on the videos, especially the first one. I don't tend to be active in the comment sections on those first videos because I like to save all my comments for this format, obviously, so I'm not repeating myself. But thank you to everybody who participated. I always love hearing from you. I think that was a great discussion. If you have another idea for another episode of Table Talk, another discussion topic you want to hear about and have a chat about, make sure to drop it in the comments below. I think I have the next one in mind. I might film that in the next couple days or so. But it's always great to make things that you all want to talk about because that's really the whole point of this series anyway. So drop those ideas in the comments below. Once again, my name is Chris George. I do not have a catchphrase, but I'm good at stealing them. So, thanks for watching.